What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another J-drama score reaction. And we're going to listen to another tune from one of my favorite scores ever. That's this soundtrack from Tenshi to Akuma, or Angels and Demons. This is a show I love a great deal. It's a show about using plea bargains to get people to speak and to eventually crack cold cases that, due to a lack of evidence or people not cooperating with investigations, have sort of lingered and remained unsolved. And so ultimately, I think a crucial layer of the show is that in Japanese sort of legal history or criminal justice, plea bargains were seen as like exceedingly disreputable and dishonorable. The idea of sort of solving or cracking a case based on someone like ratting on someone else and giving them immunity because they happen to rat on someone. It's like, in some cases they may have been involved in the crime. So again, I think historically were not used nearly to the degree that they've been used in other countries. So again, I think part of the show has to be seen with like a sort of understanding of some cultural or like social and again like legal or political differences. But ultimately, the show is about how at least this is 2015, so one would have to, I suppose, compare like developments in Japanese criminal justice in the real world, but presumably on some level it's referring to like a real shift in law enforcement to using plea bargains to crack cases that are otherwise impenetrable. Nevertheless, I do enjoy the human drama, and I especially enjoy the soundtrack. It's just emotional, it's epic, it's both of those things sometimes in the same piece. It can be really like depressive and sad, but it can also be very like energetic and we're getting things done, that sort of feel. It's composed, the soundtrack is by Hayashi Yuki. I said this before, so I'll be a little more condensed, but in university he was a rhythmic gymnast. And he was the one making music as sort of like a side hobby, and he made music for his routines and routines of other people in his gymnastic squad when they would go to meets and compete against other universities. Over the years he was in university, he got such a reputation for the quality of his productions that other university gymnastic departments began reaching out and saying like, hey, can you make music for us? That's amazing. And at that point he basically devoted his career to music. So yeah, that's where he comes from. Let's get it. This is Hayashi Yuki from the soundtrack for Tenshi to Akuma, or Angels and Demons. And the track we're going to listen to, in English it translates to Judicial Transaction. So here we go, Judicial Transaction, as through a translation, a tune by Hayashi Yuki on the Tenshi to Akuma soundtrack. Has the vibe of like gathering clues, investigating leads. tune. I mean, seriously, I need to hear more soundtracks by Hayashi Yuki, because this whole soundtrack is just brilliant. And that one, again, it's a tune that, as I hear the parts, especially the part with the watch, I know there's some moments in the show where I can remember that. But it's funny because like there's 3 or 4 tunes in the soundtrack where they're used in like crucial moments in multiple episodes. But there's still a number of tunes remaining, so it'll be interesting as we go through. And again, this was maybe a half example, and that like again there are parts of that I like. Okay, I remember when they're going around getting clues and so on. I think it's not so much like a vibe as it was like it was making me recall sort of like scenes. But yeah, there's like 12, 13 tracks left on the soundtrack, and ultimately it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if there are that many. How many are there left? I do have to check. Oh, surely there are, because there's 21 on here. I think I've reacted to like 5 or 6 maybe. That would be the most though. So yeah, there's a number on here, and it'll be interesting to hear as we go through. The degree to which the rest of them are used regularly, or perhaps very in a much more minor capacity than some of the other tracks. Because the 2 main ones, one called Angels and Demons, one Tenshi to Akuma, which it means the same thing in Japanese. One is the first track of the soundtrack, Angels and Demons. One is the last track, Tenshi to Akuma. Those are used pretty much every episode, especially Tenshi to Akuma. Usually when like the most like brutal and like sad emotional revelation that comes from one of these cold cases is revealed, that's the track that's playing. So yeah, it's another track, or it's another piece where in this case I do remember some moments, but not quite as much as one of those. Regardless, I will go through the rest of the soundtrack. Do let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.